Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to talk about some of the writing mistakes that I have seen my students make and I'm hoping you're not making, but we are going to look at 7 errors I've seen as a lecturer and how you can fix them. Because as much as we may see these mistakes, I'm very mindful that as lecturers, we don't always tell you that you're making these mistakes. So I'm going to show you how to fix them so you can save marks and stress. Make sure to watch all the way to the end because I will be given an AI element at the end. So I have been a lecturer for many years and I have seen the number one mistake many times. And this mistake is plain and simple, not answering the question. Now, it is very easy, as I find whilst doing these videos, to go off on a tangent. But the essay question is the essay question for a reason. If you have written a thesis statement and your statement is an answer to a question, or you have been given an assignment question to cover in 500 to 1,000 words, stay focused on what the question is asking. Yes, you will critique certain elements. Yes, you will discuss certain evidence. Yes, you are going to be bringing in different bits of information to answer the question, but stay focused on the actual question and make sure that by the end of the assignment, you've actually answered the question. Now, the way you can do this is by breaking it down into parts and addressing different sections of the question at a time. For example, the essay topic may be discuss the benefits and challenges faced by first-year undergrad students on peer mentoring programs. So first of all, you need to break that down. What this assignment wants you to do is discuss, because that is one of the doing words. You're going to be having a discussion on one side, the benefits, the other side, the challenges of who? First year undergrad students, not master's students, not diploma students, not qualified nurses, first year undergrad students on peer mentoring programs. Make sure that you are focusing on the group who are undergrad first year students, and those first year students need to be on peer mentoring programs. So you can break it down in that way because that is who you're focusing on, and your discussion is going to be about the pros, the cons, the benefits, the challenges of those peer mentoring programs for those students. By the end of that assignment, you should have a discussion about the benefits, a discussion about the challenges, a bit of consolidation and synthesis of the information, and a conclusion as to whether the outcome is that yes, peer mentoring programs are beneficial, or actually they're not really worth anything because students find them more stressful than when they are just lay students going through the process on their own. So make sure that you are answering the question and you are breaking down the question to make sure you are focusing on the key points of the topic being discovered. The next mistake I see students making is trying to sound super intelligent by overcomplicating things with their language. Now, I used to teach on a diploma program and I found that where students wanted to go to university after they'd qualified in the topic that I used to teach, they would use very flamboyant, flagrant and unnecessary superfluous language, some of which I've just used, when they could have just used simple terminology. Academic writing does not mean big fancy words. Academic writing is critical, yes, it's analytical, yes, but clarity is key. If you are using big fancy words, They are pointless if nobody understands what you are talking about. For example, say you're writing a paper on the cardiovascular system, but you're writing it for someone who needs to understand basic knowledge. It's a leaflet for a patient. You're not going to use words like erythrocytes and leukocytes because lay people don't understand what those words mean. You're going to use simple terminology like red blood cells and white blood cells. There's no point in using words in certain contexts if your audience is not going to understand what you're saying. So instead of using the word utilize, you may just say use. Try and keep your language simple, not too simple because this is academic writing, but you do not need to use big, long, fanciful words. I know sometimes students get into the habit of using the synonyms section on their Microsoft Word or Google Docs, and where synonyms is really useful if you don't want to keep on saying however, sometimes you may also just not need the word. One of my friends had a dissertation supervisor who absolutely hated linking words, and he would say simply just state the fact. He didn't want to see additionally, he didn't want to see therefore, he didn't want to see any of those words. He said just state the facts. Additionally, Jones says this could simply just say, Jones et al. States. So sometimes you do not need those filler words. I know many of you are trying to fill a word count, but if you're trying to fill a word count with filler words, you probably need to improve the clarity and give more evidence. The third mistake I have seen students make are weak thesis statements. I made a whole video on thesis statements because your thesis statement is the backbone. It's the golden thread that goes through your whole assignment. If your thesis statement is not clear in the beginning, your body paragraphs are generally going to follow suit. So make sure that your thesis statement is specific and directly answers the question posed in the beginning. So if the statement is to do with AI in education, you may say AI in education is not good. AI in education is not good. It's very simple. You need to make a statement. You may say that AI in education is not useful for students as overusage of AI in education prevents the ability to be a critical thinker. That thesis statement is saying AI in education, when used incorrectly, gets rid of students' ability to be a critical thinker. That is a very specific thesis statement, and the rest of your assignment is going to follow that notion. You may end by saying, actually, the research has demonstrated that when used correctly, AI in education can be a great support mechanism. However, incorrect use of AI can create a community of over-reliance on AI, and the outcome is the inability to be a critical thinker. So the theme, the thread that goes through is your thesis statement, but it needs to be strong and powerful from the beginning so that the reader looks at that and says, that's an interesting topic, and wants to read further. It needs to be clear, it needs to be specific, and you need to directly answer the question that you have been given or that you've created to answer. Another mistake I see students make is lack of structure. Now, structuring can seem really simple when you say all a good essay needs is an introduction, body paragraphs, and a conclusion. When you have disorganized essays, it confuses the reader. Now, what I mean by that is, yes, there's an introduction, yes, there's body paragraphs, and yes, there's a conclusion. But what is the content of those body paragraphs? Do you use a structure like the Peel method? Do you make the point, give evidence, give an explanation against the evidence, and then link your topics and your paragraphs together through a linking sentence or a couple of linking sentences? When you are writing your assignments, there needs to be a decent flow through your assignment. The points need to be made in a reasonable structure. They need to make sense. So, for example, discussing the benefits and challenges of peer mentoring in first year undergrad students. You shouldn't write about a benefit and then a challenge, and then a benefit and then a challenge. That is pretty confusing for the reader. So you may structure it by doing your introduction and introducing one of the benefits in your introduction, and then introducing a counter argument, which may be a challenge. You wouldn't just simply put a benefit paragraph, then a challenge. Then they have to make sense, they have to link. Or you may choose to write about all the benefits, linking one to the next, and then write about all the challenges, linking one to the next, and then write a few final paragraphs that synthesize the information and then say, actually, on reviewing the benefits and the challenges, the benefits outweigh the challenges for these reasons. But you have to make sense when you are writing those body paragraphs. Another way you're going to make your structure known and make it organized is by using headings or topic sentences to guide the reader through the assignment. I remember once reading an assignment and it was about the reflective practice that goes behind professional development. And where that topic is quite broad, there was a very big difference between students who used headings to introduce sections and students that just wrote a block of 2,000 words. It didn't make much sense. You never really knew what the next paragraph was going to be discussing because there were no linking sentences, but there were also no headings to identify what the next paragraph or next portion of text is going to be talking about. So put headings to give an outline of what the next section is going to be talking about. So where you're saying benefits of peer mentoring, you may discuss the benefits of networking when it comes to peer mentoring programs and the challenges of communication due to inexperience of mentors. So you're introducing the idea in a heading. The fifth reason where students may lose marks is because they do not reference properly. Poor referencing can really make or break an assignment. Poor referencing through using chunks of quotations where you've just basically written a paragraph around someone else's pieces of work, which inevitably is plagiarism, or you've kind of missed the point of paraphrasing and your citations are missing. So we don't actually know that this is a citation from somebody else's work. So a way that you can make referencing simpler and a bit easier is through using tools like Zotero or other referencing software like MyBib, where you can put your references in so you have a nice clean reference list at the end. But also you can copy the in-text citations so that they've got correct placement in the pieces of text, and it makes sense where you're referencing pieces of literature. They're not kind of flung all over the place where it doesn't really make sense. If you want another video going into more detail on how to reference and the reference management softwares, let me know in the comments and I'll do that for you. I also have a structured, template linked in my description, so take a look at that. Number 6 is forgetting to proofread. Now, when you write assignments, the first draft is exactly that. It is a draft, which means you should be proofreading your work. You're going to be checking for things like grammar and spelling. One thing I found personally as a student, and then made this recommendation to my students, when you read your own work over and over and over and over again, you tend to miss things because you've looked at the same piece of text about 20 times. So one of the great things you can do is ask someone else to proofread your work for you. I use my husband and my mum for clarity, coherence, and all of that beautiful stuff to make sure that it makes sense. But also have a fresh pair of eyes to look for things that you might have missed. Look for areas that you could have probably expanded on this a bit more. When I asked my husband to look at a piece of text for me, he didn't really understand what I was talking about, which to me says maybe I need to simplify it a bit, or maybe I need to expand a bit more on the topic that I'm discussing. So is it understandable to the people that you are giving to proofread your work? If you don't necessarily have the support network to proofread for you, there are others online that you can find that can support you with that. Sometimes the university has a resource where you can submit your work and within 48 to 72 hours, they will give you some feedback on the content and whether you've made mistakes and things like that. But you can also tap into services like myself. I offer a proofreading service, and that is also linked in the description. But make sure that you are proofreading your work to check. A fresh set of eyes can make a very, very big difference on whether you pick up on things that have been incorrectly spelled or there are grammatical errors. You can also use AI to do this. So there are platforms like PaperPal, which is an extension that you can add into your Word app on your desktop. You can use the web version. I just find the app easier to use, and it can check for grammar and things like that, and whether it makes sense, the clarity is there, it's coherent, and all that beautiful stuff. So when you forget to proofread, it does impact your grade. Grading, marking rubrics, most of them have an element of grammar, punctuation and spelling as mark. So if you're missing between 60 and 65%, it's probably because you fell short of proofreading, and therefore there are spelling and grammatical errors in your assignment. Mistake number 7 is one that saddens me a little bit because it is so easy to avoid. However, with the introduction of all of these different AI platforms and loads of people giving advice about getting assignments written in ChatGPT or Claude AI, or I think the new one is AI Author, and asking it to write your text and then putting it through a humanizer, the biggest thing that lets students down is plagiarism. Now, if you're not using AI and you are being flagged for plagiarism because Turnitin has come up with a percentage that's really high, it's probably because of the inability to reference or cite properly, which was one of the other points. So poor referencing and poor citations, the inability to paraphrase effectively, using large bits of quotes and bits of text from the literature that you found, it's all going to flag as plagiarism. And even if it's unintentional, it will hurt your grade. You may be asked to redo the assignment, and therefore you may be capped at a certain percentage, which may not be the best outcome for you, but it's not the worst. The worst outcome is that you get taken up to the board and you have to explain yourself. And I have seen that a couple of times on this app. So be very careful when you are using things like Grammarly, because Grammarly seems to be the one at the moment that seems to be flagging. You must always make sure the content is yours. If you are asking Jenny AI to write an outline, as tedious as you think it may be, write the outline in your own words on your Word document or your Google Docs. If you think that typing is a mundane experience, then use the dictate function and talk into your computer, because it's better you put in the extra hour to avoid the plagiarism than to just copy and paste large portions of text or get an AI software to humanize it, because it's going to affect your grade and it really does call into question your academic integrity. You started on this journey to become effectively a specialist in a certain area. Why would you jeopardize that by plagiarizing bits of information? So always make sure that you cite your sources and you use tools like Turnitin, which is obviously there, that your university provides it. Be mindful, the more you put it in though, the higher the percentage is going to come back. So if you do want to get people to proofread and things like that, use that first. But please, please, please make sure you are paraphrasing effectively. The less words from a bit of literature, the better. And if you feel like there's too much of someone else's work in there, there probably is. So you've got to go back and change that, okay? So my 7 tips were not answering the question, using overcomplicated language, a weak thesis statement, lack of structure, poor referencing, forgetting to proofread, and plagiarism. Now, for any of those things that you need support in, whatever my services are linked in the description for those if you do need additional support. And remember, if you avoid these mistakes, you will get better grades. Please, please, please be mindful of what platforms you are using if you are using AI platforms. Use the resources that are provided by your university for things like proofreading support and referencing support. What is your biggest challenge that you're facing when it comes to academic writing? Seek the help so that you can get the support. And also let us know in the comments, and let us as a community support one another. Well, that'll be all for today. Remember, you are doing amazing. The academic journey can sometimes be very stressful and overwhelming, but you are doing great. Remember why you started this process in the beginning and keep it at the forefront of your mind. And as usual, happy writing, and I'll see you in the next video.